come back for Chris later.
She's like, I'm going out, right?
I want to give you something.
Do you need help with anything?
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to call you.
Okay, are you going to get the this cover here too? Okay, do you want the same corresponding number, Mary?
Oh, great. So you're gonna. I'm sorry. Can you? But we're all gonna hang out. But listen, we get done with dinner around. Caliendo, what time we get done around dinner?
I got my It's coming right back.
Okay, you take it to your entire son. So they're on 107.
What's that? Oh, there it is.
How's it going?
I'm here with Billy Tucci, Christopher Caliendo, multimedia composer, and together we worked on She, issue number 1, 25 years ago, right, Bill?
Yes, 25 years ago, and you made one of the most amazing multimedia comic experiences I've ever seen in my life, and I'm honored to be the first one that you did it with your beautiful score and your acting and your actors, and it's just unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
Yeah, we hope
amazingly talented individual.
Thank you, Billy, and it works both ways for sure. But we're going to be. This is all going to be ready for streaming in November, I guess.
Yep, November. Yep. For the She 25th anniversary crowdfunded book, we're going to launch. We do a 500-page omnibus, so the first whole entire She the Way of the Warrior storyline.
Wow, wow, wow!
Huge.
So forthcoming to you, and here's an excerpt for you to enjoy. But here we are at Comic Con with Billy Tucci. God bless you, Billy.
God bless you, Chris.
All right.
All right.
Ciao.
But Dad, one of the main reasons why I got this cowl is because it goes on actual Lego eyes. So
Why don't you get an extra cowls? What if you lose it?
Beautiful stuff. Well, you have an eye for it.
Is Jim Fletcher, right, a designer?
So it's really about just...
Oh, look, you get a bag for you.
This one was particular.
All over the world. You have a mailing address.
Sure. Smile.
Oh, we're just relaxed.
Why, hello, Maestro Caliendo. Very excited to be heading up symbolically to my very first Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con panel. I've done Long Beach, I've done Los Angeles. I'm so excited to be here to talk about Stoker and Wells, Order of the Golden Dawn, specifically at a crowdfunding panel. To talk about Kickstarter, to talk about do's and don'ts of running a campaign, things I've learned positively, negatively, about the experience, which is, and right now, I'm running, in fact, a Kickstarter campaign. So it'll be very exciting to done one successfully, and to be in the middle of one as I'm on the stage. So very excited. Come join us. Hello. Very last.
I'm Callie. We've met at the first band. Yeah.
Let us wave.
Jimmy and Brian on. Billy or JC, the moderators.
Smile, Billy.
Back-to-back panels. I've won.
Jimmy!
Jimmy! Famous cup!
Wait, you guys are going to be in the front? You going to yell at us? You going to throw something at us?
Finalmente arriva.
I'm Billy Tucci. So this is our crowdfunding comics panel, and our moderator is 10 minutes away. So we're going to wing it until he gets here. But Meg has something to say, she said. So this is the... Hi, Meg. Hello, Meg. So,
Show your shoes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Meg. Much away since you already know a lot about him. But in honor of everything that he's done, his wonderful Samurai Fable She, and his historic storytelling style in A Child is Born, we have a special surprise for him. And on behalf of Comi Con and his wonderful
Guinness!
I don't know what to say.
Never. That never happens.
I have an ink pot! Come on in, Holly.
And just to tell you guys what kind of guy.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Holly Frazetta. This is Frank Frazetta's daughter.
I know.
And his granddaughter, Sarah.
Shut up. Just to tell you what kind of guy Billy is.
This is not my we're doing crowdfunding.
He was given a panel for spotlight on Billy on his career, and he gave it up for crowdfunding comics. So that's the spirit of comics.
Of Billy's creation, She. 25th anniversary. Let's go.
Okay, guys. All right. So, thank you. Wow. This is fantastic. I'm trying to delay for our moderator. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming. We decided, yes, it was a panel that they wanted to do a spotlight panel on me, and as Jimmy said, I do enough talking for all of us. But I'd love to introduce some friends of mine, really good friends of mine, hugely successful people who have done their own crowdfunded comic books. And it's this wonderful new thing that's happening in comics, and it reminds me, Brian, of when we started in the 90s. It's this spirit of adventure, this spirit of independence, that anyone can make a comic book, and if you go through the right channels, and if you have a good product, and if you do diligence, and if you market yourself, and if you put out, and you write, and you ship it, and you do everything like that, you can become your own comic book entrepreneur. And these fine gentlemen right here are a testament to that. And I've known them all for over 20 years, 25 years. Stephen Peros, my friend right here, I've known him since the first day of school of 7th grade. And Doug Tenable, I met Doug when I first broke into comics too, but I'm going to introduce them and maybe they can say a little thing about themselves. So ladies and gentlemen, our first guest is the gentle giant, Mr. Doug Tenable. And Doug is a creator of the video game Earthworm Jim. And yeah, there you go. successful crowdfunded comic book on Indiegogo called Bigfoot Bill.
Woo!
And if you don't mind, how did your Bigfoot Bill do?
Sure. Bigfoot Bill was my first, it's another independent character, but it was an unknown character, so I launched it with my Indiegogo campaign, and we raised $196,000 from 33 people.
Beautiful.
Wow! And now another thing about Doug, what Doug has done is that Doug has brought back Earthworm Jim to the graphic novel. And if Doug, you don't mind telling us the astonishing number that you did with Earthworm Jim, where you're at now with your crowdfunded campaign for that graphic novel.
We just broke the Indiegogo record for comic crowdfunding. It's at $47,000. We're about to crack $750,000. If you guys haven't backed Earthworm Jim, look up Earthworm Jim on Indiegogo.
I'm one of the backers right here.
There you go, my people!
We have a friend of mine, Stephen Peros, who I did meet in 7th grade. He's probably the most talented person I've ever known in my life. Steve is a screenwriter up in Los Angeles. He's worked on a ton of films, and he decided that he's an amazing artist himself, but now he makes his living as a writer, and he decided to do a Kickstarter for his Stoker and Wells comic book, his graphic novel. And his very first one that he ever did, he has no comic book experience, he doesn't know anyone in the comic book industry, and maybe Steve, you want to tell a little bit about Stoker and Wells and what you've done.
Well, very different. So you're going to see a nice, interesting cross-section of people who use crowdfunding and get comic books out there in this group. I come from, I'm a published playwright, a screenwriter, I've worked television, but I've always known people, largely through Billy, in the comic book industry. Well, I had written a screenplay, a feature screenplay, meant to be the first of a trilogy, called Stoker and Wells. And the idea was for sort of that audience who would maybe want to go see the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes or Pirates of the Caribbean, that kind of summer film that kids want to see, but the parents want to see as well, as ideally a little bit of wit and intelligence to it in a period setting. So I wrote this script, and people really liked it. No one really pulled the trigger. So someone said, and it was essentially the concept is, what if a 20-something screw-up named H.G. Wells, divorced, couldn't hold down a job, which is who he was at that time, met a 40-something theater manager named Bram Stoker, and what if the two of them went on an adventure that led to the creative inspiration for both man's first major work, which was A Time Machine for Wells and Dracula for Bram Stoker. So I wrote this script thinking, oh, you know, these books, they're public domain. People like this script. You know, it would be great if it was based on some sort of IP. I'm like, IP? Isn't Dracula and Time Machine IP enough? But apparently it wasn't. So someone said, why don't you turn it into a graphic novel? And I thought, well, I've never done that before. So the best thing to be is the dumbest person in the room. So I said, I went to Billy first, and Billy agreed to do the variant cover, Kickstarter exclusive variant cover for the Kickstarter campaign. We raised, sorry to say it, this kind of pales in comparison, $21,000.
Yeah.
Well, we raised $21,000 in 2017 to do a 54-page book. But in the doing, we realized it's really a 94-page book. So it's taken longer, a couple extra costs. We can put it out for the money that we raise, but it will mean cutting some corners on other areas we don't want to cut. So right now, I have an active live Kickstarter campaign going on, raising a measly $9,700, which we're 25% raised already in the first week. And so, if any of you look up Stoker and Wells, hope you can see the great rewards, including Billy's variant cover. So I just put a great team together. Our editor, who is the moderator here, who's a little late. Yeah. A wonderful artist, Barry Orkin, and I'm just learning a whole lot in the doing.
Thank you.
I think it's Ted or Doug.
There you go.
I stole everything from your campaign.
He does, yeah, and no, you were not, but Doug, you were a big. Brian was a big influence on you. And
his book Lady Death, I looked at how all his tiers were set up, and I really admired his business model because his fans are so. They come in on day one. And so that's the thing I'm trying to track on my campaign. I'm trying to see what does Polito do? So we're always learning from each other's campaigns.
Yeah. Thank you. We thank each and every one of you because it is the fuel. The capital is the fuel to keep making the items, and you guys have seen, some of you have, some of you haven't, but it's enabled us to actually buy a building which we've turned into a distribution center, and we fulfill our stuff out of. We have a museum, we have a store, and it really is all thanks to you guys. I guess part of this panel will be to talk to you guys about the nuts and bolts, but to speak to what Doug is saying, he has referred, the idea of getting everybody in as soon as humanly possible is a marketing term referred to as the hockey puck effect. So you could actually search it out, and it really is the game. So trying to get as many eyeballs concentrated on you to create a peak marketing moment, and we're all about that. It really is the game. We could sidebar why that's particularly important. It's a sidebar conversation, but it really does predict sort of the future of your campaign, the hockey puck effect.
More for me than anyone is someone who I refer to as the godfather of crowdfunding comics, whom we all went to and we all learned from him, Mr. Jimmy Palmiotti.
The Inkpot Award is so well deserved for you. I just have to point that out because as somebody who's known you since you started in comics, Billy's made it his life to bring these books to all you guys, you know, and it's a really quick award. He got the award, they said a nice thing, but the weight of it is huge because I've seen him have, every career is a roller coaster. You know, you do great, you have this great book, nobody knows who you are for a couple of years, you come back with something, they sort of know who you are, you look familiar, and so on and so forth. And Billy's managed to do something which I always say is probably the most important thing. He's been able to connect with his audience. Every San Diego, you guys know he's in that same spot. He's there, you know, and just always there greeting people, always saying hi. He remembers your faces. I don't know if you guys, anybody experienced that? Billy, go see him, right? Every time.
He's the official greeter of Comic Con.
He is. He's right
my
in front.
first stop.
He's right in front.
Blue Walmart then.
Yeah, exactly. But he's also the guy that encourages friends. You know, and in comics, a lot of times it's tough. You know, we're up here talking about successes and stuff, but a lot of times it's tough, and we need cheerleaders all the time. And it's great to have the audience out there, but you need the close friends to really talk in your ear and say, you know, you should do this or we should do that. And he's been one of those guys I've always felt like I could just call anytime and bother him about completely anything. Any crazy. I was a mainstream guy. You guys may know I was doing Marvel Knights, I was doing all this other stuff, but I did creator-owned comics. Before that with Ben, actually, Brian and Billy, we all had, at one point we had a booth in San Diego that I know the con was not very excited about. It didn't make it in the 50th anniversary book, probably for a reason. Yeah, because we just caused chaos, thank you. The next year
fire alarm lights, you had the drums, we used a fog machine on the floor.
Jack's taiko drummer.
Yes, it was a full motorcycle just parked right in the middle of the thing. It was the most insane three coming together of companies, but they never wanted to see us do it again. So when Kickstarter came up, I was like, this is interesting. Like, so wait, the fans could actually like say yay or nay to an idea, and then if they like it, they'll back it. If they don't, they won't. I'm like, this is something I don't see because when you work for Marvel and DC, it's the retailers. It's sure you guys vote, but I have no idea who the people are buying the things unless I go to cons, you know. And I thought, Kickstarter is cool. I'll actually get the name and addresses of everyone. and be able to hit them up every time I have a crazy idea and then see if they want to back it or they don't. And when I first did it, I got a lot of crap from people because they were like, well, you got money, you could just do it yourself. And then I would explain to them how much a book costs, how much it costs to print. And then I'd say, okay, Kickstarting's not for the weak because once you pack 1,000 boxes and bring it to the post office, they don't like you there anymore. They really don't. So I did a couple more, and I've been doing them ever since. And like I said, I'm so happy to be here because, yeah, I've had you know, I talked to Brian and I talked to Billy, and then, you know, I talked to Brian and then he does it 400 times better than I ever did it. And I'm like, all right, I got a lot to learn still. So I'm glad on this panel because I feel I'm going to learn from these guys, but thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Really, it's not because I don't like these guys. I love these guys. I met Billy and Brian and Jimmy in the 90s, and I kind of feel like they're my older brothers who's lifted me up over the years and give me chances to work on their books when I was just like a snot-nosed kid out of high school. So really appreciate everything they've done. And as I got into comics more and more, when I first started with digital coloring, a lot of people would be like, oh, it's a fad, it'll never catch on. Digital computers to color comic books. But then it sort of became a thing, and people were like, well, teach me, show me. And I can only, you know, come to these conventions and do like an hour presentation, and then the next day they're like, oh, I forgot it all. So we decided to do a Kickstarter book in 2015 called Hi-Fi Color for Comics, and we did like about $36,000, and managed to get them all boxed and shipped, which was, you know, the craziest, hardest part always. And I learned so much from you, Jimmy, watching your Kickstarters, and I know we exchanged a few emails, and it was a terrifying process. And we can talk more about that, the terrifying parts as we go along here, but it was fun and it got done. And so then this last year I got to be 1/3 of a member of a book called Femme Magnifique. We curated 50 stories about 50 women, and it was written by 50 different writers and 50 different artists, and so you can imagine all that went into that. And that book raised just under $100,000, and it was nominated for an Eisner last night. We didn't win, but it was an honor to be, you know, nominated.
Do this. I said, well, you know the guys you got to call. And he called and they all came. And we cover a wide range of experience here, both with the creative and business disciplines, but every one of them has something to say that you can learn from. I know nothing about the technical side of coloring other than what I read in Brian's book, and yet I now know enough to talk to my colorists. It's an amazing, amazing thing to witness these guys. Brian has turned this into an art form. You certainly have had your success. And so I'm going to ask everybody sort of the same questions, because I imagine you guys have different takes on all of them.
Before you do,
Not too close, right?
I've been friends with Billy for a very long time. Is there any?
Is the campaign that I beat, and that one was at 596,000. And just looking at the elegance and the beauty of the design of that front page, very simple. Even how he gathered his crowd, like he had 2.5 million Instagram followers, and I only have 6,000. But I've got 12, over this last year I've gone from 1,000 to 12,000 YouTube subscribers, and so it really is the social media side. I go on Billy's show when he started crowdfunding comics. I just start going on other people's shows. What Brian mentioned about the launch time, that is the hardest thing to get out there, is to communicate to people who you know want your book. They don't know it exists because they can't find anything on the internet. So getting just that link in front of everyone's face.
Finding that way to stand out among everything else out there on the internet.
Was the biggest thing I learned. But so the other thing was I had done, I've done 10 graphic novels with Image and 6 through Scholastic. So I kind of knew the amount of time it would take to do the book. And another thing that I do, which is why I leave my campaigns open so long, is I do live streaming where I just point the camera down at my art desk and I live draw pages.
Do you get a lot of views on that?
I do. It's maybe 1,000 views, but it's why I do original pages, and then people see that page and go, oh, I want to buy that page. And they go, oh, there's a tier with an original page, and those go for $9.50 a piece. So that bumps a lot of the crowdfunding up by putting on a show of actually doing it live, helps bring people.
That's phenomenal. Steve, you come at this a little different. You're coming from a background as a successful screenwriter, but you're far from alien to comics, having grown up with Billy Tucci and Barry Orkin.
The name of Billy.
So, I can honestly say that's never happened in any of my other panels.
Don't eat the enchiladas.
But what did you study before you came in with your first Kickstarter?
Well, you know, I don't have a fan base the way, you know, comic book creators have, so I did a lot of research. I had been a part of, well, I did not run once a campaign for a short film, so I saw what happened. I saw, basically you shut down your life for 30 days. You have to, do not do this, do not leap into Kickstarter unless you're ready to go out there. But what I found, I watched a lot of tutorials, I watched a lot of things that worked, things that didn't work. Realized that you had to be, have dignity, be self-effacing, have a good sense of humor, and be gracious and thank people. But I found that the number one thing I learned was that you have to have one-on-one contact. You have to find ways to reach out to people directly and not rely 100% on social media, because I found that the majority of my, I would find pledges when I would reach out to people directly, and as well as take advantage of every situation that presents itself to you for 30 days. Like, for example, if I happen to be, theoretically, running a Kickstarter campaign at the very moment that we're sitting here, yes, I think I'm the only one who's actually running one, as we are sitting here, I might in theory say to you that for anybody who was to pledge $35 or more. What's this under me? Oh, I know. As a Comi Con exclusive, remember dignity, Comi Con exclusive, individually numbered and signed by the artist, along with all the other rewards that you would get, including the book delivered to your door free of charge. You would get this, one of 50, numbered and signed by the artist, shipped to me as a San Diego Comi Con exclusive, that I would loiter out here pathetically and hand you once I saw that you had pledged, or at Billy's booth. Yes, that's theoretically
so crass as to do
yes,
this.
if I were so crass as to do this. But of course, if anybody who just donated at the $5 level, I would give you one of these signed, the Stoker and Wells postcards, signed by myself. That's just the kind of thing you might do if you would stoop to the level that I just did. By the way, it's called Stoker and Wells, 2 men. This is our female lead. This is Nina and Eloy Warrior from, anyone who's familiar with the Time Machine will know that, signed and numbered, individually numbered.
But not signed by her.
And only available here at San Diego Comi Con to people who contribute to the Kickstarter.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes.
Brian, I've got a question for you, because a lot of us think of you as the model of this that goes with this. The Lady Death fans are pretty legendary. And I think the best quote I heard was Ross Ritchie from Boom Studios saying, "I want to be sworn to the black and I don't know what it means." But because you've really taken your connection with your fans to the proverbial next level. I want to know, were you scared to win the first one?
Yeah, so, look, I got the heavy metal, the vest, the da-da-da, but I got to tell you guys, before the first Kickstarter launch, I really was a wreck, sorry to say, a bit of a tendency of getting nervous about these things. And I want to acknowledge and thank Jimmy, who was on the speed dial. When I'm trying to figure it out and put it together, I call the mayor, the Godfather. We all know, like you guys don't know, but we all know this is the Godfather.
You're here. Amen.
And I asked him a couple of real simple questions. The first one I remember asking is, should I have it all done? Yes or no? You said yes, et cetera, et cetera. So Jimmy gave me like that temporary feeling of confidence that would allow me to give it the shot. And so absolutely. The bad news is, like, we're about to launch the 16th, and I tend to still get that way. But I guess what I realized over time is my message for all of you guys and gals, wherever you are with your crowdfunding, is your first time, is your 5th time, it's failed, it hasn't, is if you're scared, if you're nervous, I say still do it. So I've learned to kind of deal with my tendencies, but still keep...
Don't you think that nervousness, when you channel it the right direction, that's your attention to detail?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, so this is what's going on in my mind. I want to avoid giving myself anxiety, so I try to plan my way out of it every time.
That's really good. When you had the first success with it, did you feel like, other than Jimmy, have you looked at any other successful campaigns that influenced you?
You bet. Thank you for that question. So I'm obsessed with studying all crowdfunding campaigns. I know all of yours. And we, after every campaign or before we retool, We have a small committee, and we behave like we've never seen this stuff before, and we try to absorb it again. And then I guess the other trick that we use is we look at other fields, and we look at how other fields platform their products in today's economy. So for example, we look at the record industry, we look at how limited edition clothing brands and sneaker brands bring things out, and so we try to take a look at in other areas. Like even that speaks to like how I view comics is I've always seen us as a rock and roll band, and we always got to take it out on the road. So I'm not like jumping into or buying into how it's supposed to be done, sort of the stuff that feels good. So I mean, if there's a lesson in that, you know, there's no shame in our game. We'll after every campaign, before every campaign, retool, look at it again, look at it with a fresh set of eyes, see what the trends are. And I think that because, speaking for myself, 27 years in the game, and as Jimmy mentioned, with the ups and the downs, the tremendous roller coasters, you know, I've been at the very pinnacle, I've been at the truly at the very bottom, you know, pitchforks at me. What I kind of realize is the only thing you could actually count on is change. So I'm really ready for it to change on a dime. And I'd assert you'd want to be too.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Jimmy, I can flat out tell you, when I've been doing a Kickstarter, and my partners and I, whoever my artist is on the particular project or whatever, if we see a pledge pop up from Jimmy, we all go, we're going to make it. And Jimmy has been really forthcoming with lots of information, lots of advice, and truthfully, everybody I've talked to on the panel previously has been too, and you'll find that there's a real spirit of cooperation, even though we're competing in theory, that everybody wants to get the best stuff out there. Jimmy, when you were starting your first one, because you've been a big influence on all of us, what influenced you?
Yeah, so I actually read it was a New York Times article about Kickstarter. And I was curious, and I went on it, and I just started looking around, and I just started thinking, well, if I was going to do this, how would it work for me? You know, because as much as I was looking at everybody else's campaigns, I realized that, well, I can never do that, I can't offer that, or, you know, I can get Amanda to do that, that's great, I'm going to use Amanda as much as I can. Thank you, sweetheart.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Amanda Con.
And my first one was a book called Queen Crab, so it was like a thing I did, but I put together before I knew I was going to have it published. I mean, I just paid for it out of my pocket. And I was like, I don't know who's going to buy this thing. And then I looked at the campaigns, and I said, okay, so this is like, if people like it, they're going to buy it. And if they don't, they're not going to back it, you know? So at the core, no matter what you give away or add on, the core selling point is what the book is actually about. Obviously, you're buying a book. If you're just buying a print or art, then you can just buy a print or art on a dealer's page. So, and then I started backing a lot of Kickstarters and seeing how I was getting the packages coming to me. So I backed so many. I backed my friends, I backed everyone. And I started to see, oh, this guy's late, and this guy, thing came bent, and you know, this was a good one, why was it good, you know, and slowed each one down and see why I was attracted to even backing it, like what was it on their page that made me back it. So I did like all that stuff, you know, the common sense thing. Like we go on Amazon, we know right away there's 800 of the same product, but something goes that way. And it was the same thing with the Kickstarters for me. I was looking at them, and then I said, okay, well, the worst I can do is fail. So why not try it? And it's pretty much been a theme in my career, because people always remember your successes, but man, I got a little house of successes, and I got like a city of failures, right? And but people just look at the house, you know, and they say, oh, you know. So when I did it, and I didn't have to raise that much, but I realized, okay, now what do? Now I got to ship all these, and then I said, well, I noticed the Kickstarters I really liked was like they would send the note and they would actually sign it, like the person would actually sign it, and I was like, oh, that's cool, you know. And then I was like, oh, everything should be signed. Sure, if you're doing a Kickstarter, you know. So I started picking up on these things, and that's how I started it. I mean, I did the first one. I got a lot of pushback because people were writing me and saying, well, you do whatever it was at the time, whatever comic. Maybe I was doing Jonah Hex at the time, I think. And they're like, well, you do Jonah Hex, you got money. And I'm like, okay, should I print my checks and tweet it? Because you might run the other way from comics if you wanted to do that. And so I just thought this might be a great opportunity for me to get all the ideas I have that companies really don't want. And a lot of my stuff goes towards the adult realm because I'm an older person and I like adult things. So I just learned from the people that did it before me and then all you guys afterwards because everybody's doing it much better than me now. But I know my audience. My audience is around a certain amount of people and I kind of aim my campaigns towards them. Of course, I always want new people, and that's why we're at the shows, and that's why we do all this stuff. But it's just a learning process. I feel 12 in. I think by like 28, I'm gonna nail it, like really good.
One other question, sort of about what you talked about the research, because to me, all of this is learnable,
Right.
you know. And what did you see? How long did it take you to research from the time you saw the Times article to when you launched your first?
Probably around 8 months.
Okay.
You know, because nobody, like I said, I didn't know anyone doing them.
Okay.
You know, I kept looking for somebody that I know that maybe I could call, and they just weren't doing them. There were a lot of people putting out their, you know, small books and a lot of indie people trying it out. In the beginning, it was not something, people weren't even familiar with it. You know, they were using it for different things, you know. Comics were not the biggest part of Kickstarter in the beginning.
Right, oh, sure.
You know,
absolutely.
So it wasn't, you know, so I was just like trying to navigate it. Again, if you're not afraid of failing, then you can go and do some crazy stuff.
Absolutely.
I mean, let's be honest, you know, it's like, otherwise you wouldn't get on skis, you wouldn't do this, you wouldn't travel there. You know, sometimes it doesn't work out, but you always get a lesson out of it. And that's what I did with the Kickstarter. Yeah.
Billy, you've done both for, you just did Zombie Summer very successfully. You got She, Return of the Warrior coming up.
Yeah.
What do you think each time I know we talk that we've learned something? You learn more from your successes or your failures?
Because we have our show and we ask people, what wouldn't you do again?
Yeah.
You learn a lot, right, from your failures, absolutely. But you can learn a lot from your successes too. And I think that fortune favors the bold, as we're all here doing this. And what we did is, like, when I first wanted to make a comic book, I had met Brian 26 years ago at the San Diego Comi Con. I was trying to get work. Nobody would hire me. Brian had a small table in Artist Alley in small press. And he was the first pro to actually to accept me as a peer in a way, and actually offered me a pinup in Lady Death, which I think went in the swimsuit issue. And then when I was on the plane home, he was a huge influence on me, really inspired me, and I was like, why not? Why can't I do my own book? And that's when I came to the crowdfunding thing, because I was terrified of failure. Will anybody remember me? Even though I've done some, pretty good run in mainstream books. But what I, yeah. but yeah. But what I did was then when I got so inspired again to do through the comic book, say through the Zombie Summer, our first campaign, we did a Kickstarter campaign. It was really successful for 28 days. And then I said, well, why don't we do an Indiegogo too? Why not do both? And everyone's like, you can't do that. Like, why? No one's done that before. Well, when I tried to do my first comic book, everyone's like, you can't do that. Girl books don't sell. Remember, that's what they called them. We were the original ones. We didn't have to change male characters into female. So we came with these strong, you met my mother, who raised 6 kids. A widow raised 6 kids. She was a huge inspiration, and we created these strong female characters that everyone was against. Said we couldn't do it. And the next year at San Diego Comic Con, things got so great that they ended up moving us to the autograph area at a small press. Yep. And we had huge lines, and I was next to Shatner. He looked at me like, who is this guy? And I was like, you make comics. He's like, all right, But the thing with the Indiegogo campaign is then we did another 2-week Indiegogo campaign. And it was so great because, like, I got on Doug's show and I was talking to people and got that out there. And what happens is that we did more money on Indiegogo in 2 weeks than we did on Kickstarter in a month. And all the big levels were gone. So what we learned, though, is that it is a lot like stores. Like, some people will only shop Kickstarter, whether it's easier or not, and some people will only shop through Indiegogo. And, by God, everyone deserves a little bit of each and every one of us. Don't just sell to Walmart, sell to Kmart as well, to Target, sell to Target. So that's what, to expand the horizons, and I know I'm jumping away a little bit, but I don't want to run, we're losing time and all. But I think that's the way, is to be bold. Be fearless, because it is nerve-wracking. As you said, you're nervous every time. Brian still is nervous at this point. Will people go for it? Will we do as well as the last one? Right. and he just keeps going up higher and higher. So that's it. You know, be bold.
And by the way, if you guys want a resource, subscribe to Billy's YouTube channel. It's called Crowdfunding Comics. Just look up Crowdfunding.
Thank you. Yeah.
Every Thursday night, 6 p.m.
Pacific time. Yeah.
And 9 p.m. Eastern, live streams, some incredible.
Yeah, anyone wants to come on the show, they're on. It's,
Can I
you
come
know,
on before we watch the next Lady Death?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Kidding me? Yeah.
I'll be on
We'll
August
see if we
1st.
can-
I was
we'll
just
see
booked.
if-
Billy just booked me for August 1st.
Yeah, that guy too. We'll see if we can fit you in.
I was the pilot.
Yeah, no, we've been doing it every sometimes 3-4 shows a week with my partner Niall Scala and I. So if anybody wants to be on it, please email crowdfundingcomics@gmail.com. So.
All right, Brian.
There you go.
Christy, we run Hi-Fi, and I've always really admired how Jimmy and Amanda work, because we're sort of in I don't know if to call it parallel, but they work for mainstream publishers and they create their own products.
Does she work upstairs and you work downstairs?
Well, yeah, we're separated by a wing, right?
That's how it works, thank you. Very
What's the joke?
The Woody
You need
Allen
square
approach.
footage and 2 TiVos, and it's a successful marriage. But so, you know, I've really admired how you guys do that. You work for the mainstream publishers, you've got an audience there, but you're also putting out your own stuff. And we had authored a couple of art instruction books through a traditional publisher, and when the financial crash happened, that publisher went out of business. And those rights reverted back to us, and we said, now what? Now what do we do? And I sort of had a bad experience with that publisher overall. Found out they were selling books in Europe and China that we didn't know they were making, and we weren't getting that money, yada, yada, yada. So we said, we're gonna go to Kickstarter. And like you guys, I studied, and I thought I had all my ducks in a row. And because it wasn't creator-owned artwork, I had to get permission from Billy and from Marvel and from DC and all the different people, I think even Brian, that we had their characters and artwork in our book. They had to sign the agreements to give us the release to use the art. And our Kickstarter goes live, and the first day we're like, shoot past our original goal, it's looking good, really excited, go to bed, wake up the next day, Kickstarter's not there. There's a story on Bleeding Cool that our Kickstarter got shut down. There's a story on Newsarama that our Kickstarter got shut down. That Brian Miller had been illegally using Marvel art.
Oh.
And my heart sinks and I'm panicked, you know, my reputation's ruined. So I go through the paperwork and find everything, and I'm on the phone with Kickstarter, and then I have to get on the phone with Marvel's lawyers. And we did have all our ducks in a row, it was all legal, but someone at Marvel Legal didn't know that. And they told Kickstarter, yank it. And so by the end of that second day, we're back live. The damage was done, and it took the rest of those 29 days.
Did that wipe out the money, or did that?
Luckily, they did not wipe out the money,
But the momentum's gone.
the momentum was gone, and we
Yeah.
had, you know, big story, Hi-Fi gets shut down, little retraction, the Kickstarter's back on, everything's fine.
Page 14. Wow.
So, you know, that was a very traumatic experience, and you talk about a mistake, even when you think you've done everything right, maybe we needed to make one more phone call to someone and say, hey, this is going live, are you sure we're good to go?
There's always one more detail.
There's always one more detail. So, you learn from those things, or you can't expect them sometimes. But it was still successful, and it did get made. But you know, we were talking about shipping. I wish I had done what Brian does now and had it all done in advance, because getting it made, getting it shipped, all that stuff from the time the Kickstarter ends till it's in people's hands, it's a lot of work. It is a full-time job for the 30 days or more that you're running that
I
campaign.
think that's when you were on Billy's show and you did the tour of your facility, and you saw space that was dedicated to this and that, and that it is a big operation. Well, whether you're one person or one person with help or whatever, shipping is the real deal. I think the best thing that Jimmy told me was, once we start, once you push go, you're in the customer service business.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it is a service industry.
You may be a comic creator, but you're in the customer service business.
Answer every question.
Yeah.
And it gets tough because when the art department is working, the service department might not necessarily be working, and when the shipping department is working, you know, the writing department, the marketing department might be, because we're small.
And nobody cares about your product the way you do.
Right.
So if you're offloading that to a shipping company or something, there's no guarantee they're gonna take care of it. That's why Brian's doing his own distribution now with that stuff, and he's killing it because he cares and his people care, and they're gonna package it right and ship it right.
And you, yeah, so, no, please.
I was going to say that our view is that, yeah, it's all about customer service. I was the first person working in my company. The first person I hired, their job title was customer service manager. So that's where we put the priority. And we actually internally do not view, or we view the writing of the story, the physical product, the shipping and the delivery and the experience equally. None is less. All are important. So
I think that's really important, Steve.
that's
Okay, that's
No, great, and great or small, like you can have this well-oiled machine like Brian, or you can come when I went to Jimmy's office and he's got boxes piled high of all the things. But you do it, you gotta do it. So whether you're just starting out doing it, or you're a one-man army doing it, or one-woman army doing it, you can do it. You just gotta do it. It's not.
It is the discipline that's the maker. So for those of you getting into that space, you have a pretty big uphill climb to learn. You learn how to use the little Dymo label printer or whatever. You learn how, I learned what tape doesn't ship well on boxes, or making boxes that are waterproof in case they get delivered on someone's porch, because every time you have to refulfill a book, you're losing money. You're paying shipping again, and you're paying for the printing again, and just the workload on it. So that's the big uphill climb, and especially when you start getting into mass, where my last campaign was 3,300 backers, now I'm up over 8,000 backers, way outside of my purview. So I work with shipping and fulfillment companies, but still, how to talk to backers. They expect, this is social media, so they expect one-on-one talking to you, being held accountable personally. It's not like a mindless store buy where they never see you and never know you. It's really different than that. But that is the big uphill climb, is learning that. But start small in a small campaign, you'll learn small lessons and then bigger lessons later.
I just wanted to add something about those of you out here saying, well, I don't have big fan bases. How do I get started? I have a little book. I want to do it. I'm in a way it's closer to where you're sitting, even though I'm successful in one media. It's, screenwriters don't have a big fan club. So one of the things you have to do is you can't go into it unless you're willing to reach out to people. You're going to have to write one-on-one to all of those hometown friends. You're going to have to write one-on-one to all of those coworkers with humility. With grace, be self-deprecating, be thankful and grateful for every $5 pledge, because even though I live in Los Angeles and I'm around with a lot of entertainment industry people, the people who gave me the most, who reached deeper beyond what I know what their income was the people who I grew up with in North Babylon, New York, on Long Island. Every single one of my Facebook friends were so proud of me and Barry working together and Billy contributing, that they gave amounts of money that literally humbled me. So if you're getting into it, you don't have a fan base, just know you're going to spend those 30 days writing to people, sending them your link, and telling them that's not charity, that you're giving them something for their pledge, and you'll be surprised. People, one by one, will step up. So that's what I can say to those of you out there who want to start small and don't have so many fan base.
I think that's a really important point, Stephen. It echoes what Jimmy said about the personal note going with the Kickstarter stuff, the personal response. I backed Steve Conley's Middle Ages recently.
I just want to say something. We are releasing She out next month. It's called Return of the Warrior. 2 weeks after Brian, or 3 weeks after Brian. If you guys would check it out, like I said, go to crowdfundingcomics.com, billytucci.com. If you stop by my booth, 1801, I'm at the AB. If you go through B2C entrance, I'm the first booth you'll see. But if I may, real quick, is just for this, thank you all for this, because this is a testament. I love looking out and seeing this. This is an independent, aside from Jimmy, with all the huge success Jimmy has had in the mainstream and really reinventing Harley Quinn and making movies because of her, and Brian Miller, who's colored every book. We're all independent guys. We're all self-publishers. We're all small indie guys. And it really warms my heart to see a double room like this filled with all you guys to come. So I just want to, thank you all for this. So thank you guys. That comics are for everyone, and every one of us, and every one of you guys can do that. Every one of us can become comic book publishers and creators. So thank you very much. So that's it for me.
So I'm in the fulfillment stage of my Painful Jane Kickstarter, so I won't be doing a Kickstarter until the last book is shipped. That's my rule. I don't start something until the other thing is done. I can be found on paperfilms.com, and I have back issue. I sell everything from my books to my wife's art, and all that kind of stuff. So stop by and say hi. And we do a newsletter that tells you where we're going to be and when our next Kickstarter is coming. So thank you.
Visit me and the Coffin Crew at booth 5530, right across from the Kid, down in the hall. And please, back Lady Death Blasphemy Anthem on Wednesday, August 7th at 7 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Be there. Jimmy Calabrese, the marketing and sales manager of Coffin Comics, also bass player for Calabrese, will be here right outside with me, and we will give you this flyer to rock out on. Thank you so much for being here, everybody.
As I mentioned, I am running an active Kickstarter campaign right now. A week in, 3 weeks left. If any of you in this audience, it's Stoker and Wells, my name, also friend me on Facebook. Any of you here pledge the $35 or higher level, in addition to everything else you're going to get, I'm going to hand you Comic-Con exclusive, this 11 by 17 numbered and signed by the artist. And also for every $5, I'll give you the postcard signed by me. So I hope you'll take a look at Stoker and Wells, Barry Orkin's Lens of Extraordinary Art.
Great luck.
I'm Rick Knapel, and I'm the author and artist of Earthworm Jim. It's available on the in-demand store on Indiegogo. You can still back the book. We broke the record. We're at $750,000. Any of my backers, I'll give you an Earthworm Jim original drawing. I brought 17 of these out in the hall.
There you go.
I started going to Comic-Con in '89. I would go to all these panels to learn, how do I get into comics? How do I do a career? I was never a good enough artist or writer to work at Marvel or DC. All I wanted was a chance to break in. I just learned it by fighting, by making friends, and having powerful contacts like these guys. I just need a little bit of encouragement, and I can do it. My family supports me, and my backers. You guys make my life sweet right now. It's nice. Every once in a while, there's a couple of rough years. So it's nice to finally get a victory lap and get a little breath of fresh air.
Absolutely.
We love you, Doug!
I just want to say sometime this fall, check out Al Capone Vampire on Kickstarter. It's my next Vampire PA book. I am really glad you guys were here. Are you guys glad?
Yeah. Questions, you can stop by the booth.
We're out. Thank you. We're out.
Yes, sir.
Steven's on. We worked with Steven's on it. Yeah.
How would you say that?
I just think it's against this thing here.
You walked that way.
You don't want to buy all the way.
She-Hulk over there.
Holy shit. You really think you are dog?
I said each one with a winning ticket can have one person with
It's better to know now how fucking it is.
It's just so you know, I'm starting to get like.
I got it.
How is it?
You're good. You're good. Thank you, sir.
Good man. You big guy. My boss.
Trying to remember what Batman looks like. Gary's no help.
This is the one.
It's all like kind of red, light red. It's like
Oh, really? I have no so much influence over you. If I had so much influence over you, you would have repented.
Madness.
We're the old pilots, so it was like in non-stick.
Stoker and Wells, the panel was quite a lot of fun. It was great being there with these guys who have made 6 and 7 figures, raising money through their fans, through the crowds for Kickstarter. I learned a lot. I feel I spread the word of Stoker and Wells. It was
big
extraordinary. Yes, big audience. It's extraordinarily meaningful to be on a panel with my dear friend Billy Tucci from junior high while he won that award. Have my brother sitting across from me, have the great maestro, Christopher Caliendo, childhood friend and creative collaborator with me.
And filming.
And who is filming at this moment. Gloriously. And he contributed to that edit, and that edit, and that edit. Wonderful Zoom. Now we watch me unsuccessfully again.
Now we're going to somehow.
As you should.
That's Sven.
Oh, I think we could,
But by comparison.
Yes.
all right. Because if Nick's not coming,
For what?
Mary Lou had to check to see who she's some remnants.
What is strange about this table?
Careful, you're on video.
Billy, there are no women at this table. I go around the table to Stephen.
Oh, hello, Christopher. How are you?
I'm well,
Welcome, my friend.
I'm always happy when I'm near you, Stephen.
Same here, same here.
We're always celebrating something.
Always celebrate with a little ouzo, Greek ouzo, a fine
Concoction. We're at a Greek restaurant. Tell us a little about the history of Athens Restaurant.
Athens Market Taverna is one of the few Greek restaurants that I like. As anyone who's grown up with an ethnic cuisine, we're very choosy, especially with wonderful relatives, a mother, grandmother who cooks such exquisite Greek food. There are so many restaurants I've gone to. People said, "Oh, this is a great Greek restaurant in Malibu or here or there in LA," and I'm like, "Don't you love it?" I'm like, but. This place I love. This place is extraordinary.
And this place is
Athens Market Taverna in a Gaslamp district of San Diego, downtown San Diego. Mary Pappas, who is usually here and drinking up a storm and having a great time with us, is in Greece on vacation, as most Greeks
too bad.
want to do late July into August.
Like the Italians.
But they are taking...
A fun fact, if I may, this also hosted the San Diego Comic Con banquet party, or not a banquet, but they had a Sunday or a Saturday night dinner. Everyone was here, all the stars. You had Kirby, Stan Lee, Dave Stevens, the Rocketeer. They had a girl belly dancing until it outgrew it. All the Comic Con people, they would have their big party here.
No idea.
Back in the 80s.
An anecdote from Billy Tucci himself. Back to Stephen.
I'm sorry.
No, it's been extraordinary. We've been doing this. We've never been able to really pinpoint exactly how long we've been doing this restaurant, but certainly since the early 2000s. I would say we could have been here as early as 2002 or 3 for this particular restaurant. So we're going on quite a number of years here. Originally in the other room, when they had that other room, we had quite a delightful waiter for 2 years in a row, if you remember.
Beautiful.
Yes, he was just a wonderful man, took no crap from us, left us all smoldering piles of ashes with his acerbic tongue.
I remember that guy, yeah, absolutely.
And then they moved us into this bigger room as the years have gone on. We have original members here, myself, Billy Tucci, frequent guest star Christopher Caliendo,
Mike Peros.
Mike Peros, the perennial,
David Pfizer.
Joe Cora perennial as any flower in a garden is. David Pfizer, a local, who we adopted.
Who shows up late despite his locality.
And then some who have been here a number of years in a row already.
We have some new friends here. Right here.
There's always new people.
Murderers Row, right
That's
here.
right.
There you go.
Some very colorful people.
Some and of course the great absence of Michael Soloff, who I have photos of, who did not wear shoes one night. He had his socks under the table, which is
kicked off his shoes.
Billy Tucci is very offended by
Mary
that.
Pattinson's restaurant.
Yeah.
Was offended for her.
Yeah.
And all gentlemen and women across the fruited plain and the world. It's disgusting.
Let it be
That's
known.
enough I had to say about that.
There it is. And closing statement?
JC, what's your closing statement?
Our moderator for the panel today did an exquisite job and should be offered a community clap for it. Great job, man.
In terms of a closing statement, what do you want? Good food, good people, great conversation.
And there it is.
How is it any better?
There it is.
There you are.
Senza le donne.
Well, it's an old joke. But I'd like to thank everybody for coming for the 400th and 3rd anniversary Athens Walker Taverna dinner. The old guard, welcoming new people as well. Thank you for joining us. Billy Tucci always says plus 12. Doesn't even know what he's doing. As many as he can get in the door. I do. We actually had a call ahead to see how many this table would fit. So thank you all for being here. This is a very exciting Comic Con for me because this is the first year I am actually on a panel. I was on a panel at 1 o'clock with this fine man, this fine man, this fine man who arranged it all.
Independent comics!
Crowdfunding comics. I am not, while I've had a good career in film and television, I am not a superstar in this comic book world. So we're about 25% funded on my Kickstarter campaign, 3 weeks to go. I will probably kindly Facebook message or email you to share my post, to put the word out, to help in any way that you feel that you're willing to do so, because I really believe in the book and what it stands for.
Brevity is the soul of wit.
And there it is, my friend.
Very good.
And if you visit the Facebook page, you will see that the maestro, this fine man, shot, edited, and scored my 2-minute Kickstarter video.
Caliendo!
Extraordinarily.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, thank you all in advance for any assistance you can
Thank
give.
you, Stephen. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done,
Thank you for having us.
Cheers. Cheers, brother.
And with that said, Stephen is making an announcement that he's paying for the bill tonight. No.
With Billy Tucci's credit card.